Hey everyone, it's Friday again, so we are back for another session of our Winter Wonders sampler. And this week we have a very easy week for the sewing. We are just making this little hat unit up here, all straight seams, no angles or anything like we did last week, no small pieces. So it'll be pretty easy to put that hat together. Then after that, you're gonna go on and sew the whole section, the middle section of the quilt together. So like I said last week, it's gonna look like we really got a lot done just by sewing a few seams here. So that's what we're gonna work on this week. And in case you missed it, we did give away some backing for the quilt to one lucky winner who had been posting her blocks on Instagram. I will say though that I did get a notification this week that those backings are delayed yet again. This collection came out in May, so the backings were supposed to come in June. They usually come a month later. Then they were delayed until August. Now they are delayed until October. But you may or may not be done with your quilt by then anyways, so it may not affect all of you. But I just wanted to give you guys a heads up on that in case you're looking for those backings in the stores. So let's go ahead and jump to this week's lesson. So next I will post some of the videos that I shot. It was actually about 6 months ago when I filmed the videos because I did that along with making this quilt. So we will go to the two videos that show you how to do the hat and then how to sew the middle section together. So happy sewing everyone. See you back here again next week. Well, welcome back to the Winter Wonders Sew Along. This week we are going to be making the hat unit that's going to go on our snowman, and we are going to be sewing together the center of our quilt top. So it's going to feel like we're going to make a lot of progress today without a whole lot of work. So I have the pieces laid out for the hat unit that we're going to start with first. And one thing I wanted to comment on how this pattern was done is a couple months ago, I had to turn in the pattern for the boxed kit that Riley Blake put out for this pattern. And in between that time, this has been tested one more time, and we found a typo in the pattern. So the printed patterns that you get from me are correct, but the ones that are in the Riley Blake kit, there is a correction to that. And the first one is that this should be 9 instead of 7. 10-inch squares, and of those 9, 2 of them have to be the same print to get enough pieces for the hat. This is also the border print in that kit, so you could cut this extra square out of the border print and these 2 pieces out of the 10-inch square, and that'll still work. In the box kit, you should have 2 of these, so you should be able to get everything you need as long as you plan ahead when you're cutting. And it is, you know, colored correctly in the pattern. It's just that I should have said 9 here, and I should have said you need 2 of this, of these 2 prints, each of those 2 prints to be able to get that piece out of there. So if you have the later printed pattern, I have that version in there. So then let's talk about how these pieces are sewn together. You're going to kind of put it together like a puzzle, where you start with these 2 pieces and you're going to join this piece along here. I have you pressing that seam open, which is what that little white arrow is there for. Then you're going to be able to join this piece here and this piece here. And after you do that, then this should fit along the bottom. Then you're going to sew these 2 together here. And then you're going to be able to sew that along this side or this seam here. And then you'll have that center part put together, and then you'll be able to attach these 2 pieces. So it's all straight sewing, no triangles involved. You're going to have a proof size again of the 10 inches tall by the 19.5 inches wide. Then I will go ahead and assemble this, and then I will come back to talk about assembling the center of our quilt here. All right, now that we've got our little hat unit all sewn together, we are ready to start assembling our quilt. So I've got it up on the design wall behind us here, and you can see I've broke it into sections. So you're going to start with the bottom. We have our big snowman base here, and then you're going to take these 4 blocks and sew them into a big giant 4 patch. Then you're going to connect these 2 here. Then you can just start sewing these sections together in rows like so, and then you can sew the rows together. Now there is a proof size in the pattern of what we're aiming for, and if your center turns out a little bit different than what the pattern says, I will give you a little cheat later on when we sew the borders on for making a few adjustments to that. So don't worry too much if your quilt is 1/4 or 3/8 of an inch or something smaller. We will be able to make it work with our piece borders that go around it. So that's it for this week, and I'll be back next week for our next section we're going to work on. We are going to make the little mitten section. I've got that laying here. Aren't these cute? So that's what we'll be doing next week. I'll see you back here then. One quick thing that I forgot to mention in my previous video, these blocks can be turned any direction you want them to be. So I'm going to turn mine here with the snowflake up. The diagram and the pattern shows it down here in this corner, but you can rearrange that block any way you want it. But I just wanted to clarify for those of you who are looking at your pattern maybe, and you might think it looks different than what I'm doing here, but it doesn't really matter. You can just turn it any which way you want that block to go.